This episode is sponsored by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code GAMEBREAKER6. This episode is also brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of Derpy Dragon, the free-to-play show for June 23rd, 2013. I'm Gary Gannon, and you're watching GameBreaker TV. Coming up on today's show, there's a storm coming in Age of Wushu. All systems are go in Neverwinter, and Tryon say sorry. All that and more, but first, joining me as always, editor-in-chief of FreeToPlay.tv, Mr. Mike Byrne. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, sir. You sound a little bit better. You sound a little better.
Getting there. I'm getting there. Nursing a bit of a cold, sore throat, but we got honey lemon tea. We'll make it through.
I saw your tweet about the 900 products you had on your desk there.
It's been a rough week. So we'll get through it. All right, so let's see. Time to talk about a little bit of small talk. You know, what everybody talks about. You don't have nothing to say. What do you talk about? Well, you talk about the weather.
Right.
Hey, how's it over there by you, Mike?
It's pretty sunny. East Coast, Pennsylvania. It's no LA, but it's doing good the last few days. You?
Nice. You know, it's LA. It's 80, 85, sunny, clear skies pretty much every day. It's pretty much what the weather's like.
I hate you.
I know. Josh Allen from Legendary took his new position over at Blizzard, side note. And he's been here a week, and he's tweeting, I think Wizards control the weather in Los Angeles because every day it's just gorgeous. And I'm like, welcome to California, because it really is. If there were ever a place to have weather manipulation, it would definitely be in the state of California, because it's perfect every day. It's amazing.
Every day. I lived there for a year, like in my early teens, like 10, 11, 12, 13, right in there. And beautiful, beautiful.
So there's
now
a big
I'm in Pennsylvania, land of rain.
There you go, East Coast, land of rain. There's a big weather update in the works for Age of Wushu. So this is a game that I actually really liked for quite a while. I was playing it a bit. But before we get into specifics, do you care at all about weather effects at all?
I do. It's raining sideways in Age of Wushu. Come on, little Ollie for you. I do. I absolutely love those small things, not just weather, and when I wrote this up for the site, I prefaced it with, I do really enjoy things like these small little details, not just full weather, but even looking up at the sky and seeing the clouds in an MMO move as if there was a breeze, or looking up at night and seeing all the stars, and then the next night they're in a different location. It's not like the same. It's just those little touches that pull you into any of these worlds just a little bit more. They don't sell games, but they make them, in my book.
Yeah. Our producer, Dom, went on a Twitter rampage about weather. He really did. But I think he's right. Like, I really do think, like, he made some points here just talking about how, you know, games should really probably, especially MMOs, could really use the weather to their benefit to kind of like almost not build the game around the weather, but have everything happen and sort of affect around the weather, including seasons changing, have the quests change around that. You know, in spring, he says, you protect farms and things like that. In autumn, you gathering food for winter, things like that. It would be really interesting if something like that happened. I think it adds a lot to a game, and I actually hate that some games kind of leave it as like a side note, and just sort of like fluff. Where I think that they could actually build, hoping more of the sandbox games that are coming out in the future, like Age of Wushu, kind of really take it to heart. So this update that they're talking about is a bit of ways off yet. It'll be coming to the Chinese servers first, but it looks like it's going to be quite a bit more than just a rainy zone every now and then, doesn't it? So first up, day-night cycles.
Yep.
Is this a feature you want to see in your games? Do you like the day-night cycle?
If you don't put a day-night cycle in an MMO, especially one that's a persistent world, I think it's just dumb. It's one of those things like, you ever watch an animated movie or a cutscene in an MMO and the character doesn't blink?
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell immediately what's wrong with the scene, but your brain perceives something as being wrong. I think the day-night cycle is a lot like that, where you're constantly playing and you're like, wow, there's something off here, and it gnaws at you until you figure it out. And it's something that's so simple. I say that not being a developer, but shut the lights off for 6 hours, turn them back on for 6 hours. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard to at least put a rudimentary cycle in. And in my book, in a persistent world, you have to have that.
Yeah, I've been harking back to the days, like old school days of MMOs when like dark was dark. Like it was dark. You could see in that forest. We've got a video up on FreeToPlay.tv showing off nighttime for Age of Wushu combined with thunderstorm.
Yeah,
it's
really, you got to mess with
really
the gamma.
Dark. It's really, really dark combined with some really bright lightning flashes.
Yes.
Do we know
sound
if it's
effect
gonna
was a little wonky though, wasn't it?
It's still working on it.
Sound effect was a little off, but it's under development.
Under development. Do we know if it's going to be as close to that dark if there's a thunderstorm going on?
I would hope so. I mean, it looked great. I think it behaves, especially in a sandbox MMO, it behaves more like real life, where on a dark night you have a certain visibility. On a rainy dark night, that visibility is reduced even further. And in a sandbox where the idea is to emulate an environment that is close to being real, but you can do whatever the hell you want, I think it would have to. And it looked great in the video. You have to turn the gamma on there a little bit just to be able to see. But I think it's a great idea. Take advantage of things that people are used to in real life and throw them in your MMO. It just pulls the immersion factor up a little.
What do you think of some of these? I'm going to go back to our producer Dom's tweets here and look at some of these.
All like 40 of them?
I know, he made so many of them, but I'm wondering what some of your thoughts on some of them are. He says, seasons and day-night cycles that really change things as well. Warm clothes needed in winter, nocturnal creatures in actual darkness. Are you the type of MMO player that, but it makes sense, right? But are you the type of MMO player that really likes this stuff? Because I feel like a lot of developers think that things like this are a huge nuisance for a lot of the MMO players who aren't sort of into like the sandbox kind of MMO where you want sort of the realism stuff. You just want more of the theme park stuff. Where do you think?
Well, I'm going to go with something that's not free to play here, and we talked about on Twimo a little bit. We talked about Final Fantasy 14, but we mentioned Final Fantasy 11 in there as well. And I was a huge Final Fantasy 11 player. That had a full weather cycle, night and day. And to Dom's point, at night in certain zones, monsters came out that were never there during the daytime. They just weren't. You'd go to Valkyrie Dunes, and during the daytime you'd kill damselflies, and when night came out, all of a sudden you had bogies running around the area and different skeletons and things like that. I think it just adds to the realism factor. Yes, it is a pain in the ass on the development side.
Sure.
More mobs, more time, but man, those are the things that game is 10 years old, and I still remember the way they did that.
It really adds flavor, right? Now, how about this? We didn't bring up, I don't know, but what do you think about, should day-night cycles be real-world day-night cycles? I'm actually a fan of that even.
I'm not.
I hate that they, really? See, I hate that they change just like randomly. Like I love the fact that like DayZ goes by like real-world clocks depending on where servers are. I see. I think that sucks to a certain extent. I can see where it's where you're like, oh, that would be a great idea, right? Oh, it's daytime outside here. It's daytime in my game. But you have to centralize the clock somewhere, which means somebody in the world is never playing this game with the sun out, ever. Because all of their free time to be able to play is at a certain time in their schedule, and the clock's based on the other side of the world. I'm not a fan of. All right, maybe I'll go with a different. Maybe
cycles.
Maybe a sped up one, but a really slow one. Maybe it's not, because I think normal day-night cycles, I feel like in average games now are like what, an hour or something?
Right.
Like, it may be like 3 or 4. I don't know.
So Gary's like, I want my day-night cycle not quite 24 hours. Let's speed it up a little bit, but let's slow
22.
it down. No, speed it up. Slow it down. No, right there. Stop.
Right there. Stop. That feels good. Dom says heavy rain leads to a flood, to a changed zone, leads to new mobs, leads to new events, that sort of thing. Nothing on a timer, completely random. Again, kind of what you're talking about with taking it to the next level of what you, I mean, they were doing stuff like nocturnal creatures in Final Fantasy 11 was how many years ago?
Yeah,
how many?
decade.
Like, so that's easy stuff, right? So what he's talking about here really isn't that big of a, this should be doable by today's standards. Flood comes in, washes away a bunch of stuff, changes the zone, changes the creatures. It is a lot of work.
You're starting to see it. I mean, Guild Wars 2 kind of started to play with that with some of their dynamic events on, it wasn't necessarily tied to the weather, but there was changes based on a random occurrence. WildStar is even taking that to the next step, where they're putting their plugins where they can have a meteor slam into a mountain in real time and nobody's disconnected, no updates necessary, but there's some type of change to the environment. So if they can do that, what's to stop them to be able to replace that meteor with a waterfall that is now overflowing due to the rain that causes that change in the environment? I think we're starting to see it, and I think it's great. I want to see more of it.
I agree with Dom. I don't want to see these as cycled events. I want to see them random. I want to see it actually like have some sort of dynamic system built in. Yeah. So going back to Age of Wushu, they're going to have seasons and changing weather effects, including things, some things we don't normally see. And one of them, it sounds really cool, are like sandstorms. So this is something to get excited about. I mean, how far do you think Snail is going to take this? Snail's company makes Age of Wushu, if you don't.
Yeah, if you don't know, Snail Games, Age of Wushu. Why not take it as far as you can? You've already created the system to do it. The harder, I mean, you would think the harder particle elements, rain, snow, sand, you've already implemented. So why not start to really play with it? You already have a game that's kind of considered to be a very unique experience and maybe doesn't have the biggest player base because it's so unique. So why not start playing with what's already unique and make it even more unique?
Yeah,
I look
agree.
forward to seeing what they can do with it. But take it to the point that it totally breaks it and pisses people off, and then back up just a little bit, and you've found the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it really changes the gameplay. I mean, a super dark winters, lighter if there's a full moon out, and really use the lighting there. Maybe shorter nights in summer.
That image was crazy. They had an image of both the sandstorm and the moonlight. Because that was another thing. It was like, okay, well, if there's a full moon, does it really change my nighttime lighting conditions, or is it just something extra in the sky? But there was a clear difference between there's no moon out tonight and this full moon shining over a pagoda. And it was fantastic. And then the sandstorm looked great. I'm excited. I want to see it in more games because Age of Wushu just isn't my thing. It's more your thing.
Yeah, my more thing. Something else I think that could be super interesting. You're starting to... This is really new tech, even in single player games. So it's kind of, it's going to take some time to get over to the MMO space, I think. But I don't know if you played Far Cry. Did you play Far Cry 3? Far Cry 3.
Yep.
So in Far Cry 3, one thing that blew me away was, if something catches fire and you're in like a field or something and you watch that fire spread, start burning stuff down, you're like, what? Again, how awesome would that be if, this thunderstorm, you're out in the middle of nowhere in Age of Wushu, thunderstorm, lightning strikes, hits a tree, boom, blows it up, and then actually fire starts spreading and actually burning stuff down. Like, I think hopefully we can get to the point that technology can do that kind of stuff where it's a little bit more, because that's real dynamic stuff, right? Like all these games they try and use the dynamic weather in their PRs, speak and in their bullet points and stuff, but is it really? Like, no. But have random lightning strike down and burn down a field and some houses, that would be dynamic weather. And I guess a lot of people are going, this sounds super expensive and things like that. And I guess it's a more philosophical thing. It's like, do you spend a lot of time and money building all the quest stuff, or do you spend a lot of money and time doing stuff like this? But I think it really adds to, at least to a sandbox game, for me, it makes a lot of sense. For a game
right, and that's where you have the best opportunity to try this type of stuff is a sandbox MMO. You're not going to see Blizzard trying to do this stuff when they've got more PvE and more PvP that they've got to pump out on a regular content schedule. But for a sandbox type game, Age of Wushu, dare I say, EverQuest Next, that's where you have the opportunity to sink a little more money into these types of things, because you're maybe not on as an aggressive a development cycle for PvE, PvP, because that's not the premise of your game.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of weather just being on a timer or zones.
Yeah.
Certain zones being on weather effects are just completely ridiculous.
And again, we're not making things up. They've done this before. Final Fantasy XI had weather. It was not on a timer. It was random based on location. It just occurred, and that weather would influence mobs in the area. If there was a lightning storm, then your mage's lightning or thunder spells got stronger, but elementals would all of a sudden be introduced to the area while it was storming. We've seen this as far as 10 years ago. Let's keep seeing it now, and Age of Wushu really has me excited about it.
Yeah, we don't know how far they're actually going to take it. They do promise that weather will impact events and skills. So they are saying that it will affect events and skills. We're definitely going to have to check this out. I mean, MMO fans, especially watching shows like this, are always looking for that next-gen MMO, the one that sort of changes everything. I don't know if Age of Wushu is going to change everything. They've changed a lot already, to be honest. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. I don't think it's an impossible dream.
No, I'm with you. I think it's definitely possible.
So yes, you mentioned EverQuest Next. I'd love to see SOE just go crazy with something like this in a huge sandbox and do some of the same stuff. That would be great.
They got the money to do it.
Yes. Well, that's to be seen.
Well, Sony might have the money to do it. Sony Online Entertainment might not.
Never know. Never know. All right, let's talk a little bit. I want to talk about Neverwinter, but first I want to tell you guys about a great deal we got going on with Shutterstock. Love the Shutterstock.com. Want to save you guys 30% off? Just go over, make a brand new account on Shutterstock. Make sure you use promo code GameBreaker6. Gonna get yourself 30% off on that new account. If you guys are looking for stock photography, maybe vector artwork, or even moving stock video footage, maybe you've got a class project or a video project you're working on or a website, Shutterstock is the place to go to really just spruce up anything you possibly need. Kind of looking at some random artwork here on castles, little stuff maybe for the Game Breaker Nation website, looking through some cool stuff. Check it out. Go over to Shutterstock.com. You just go in, throw in some of your ideas. Maybe you just got a keyword, need a castle. Some great castle icon. Really, really, really awesome stuff. You need stock footage, go over to the footage section right here, type in something that you're looking for, and look up some stock photography or video footage as well. And like I said, I want to save you guys 30% off, so just go over to Shutterstock.com. Use offer code GameBreaker6. Got to use the promo code, get you that 30% off. And let's talk about a little bit of Neverwinter, the little game that. So the game finally dropped its open beta tag on the 20th of the June. So it's the official launch now. Neverwinter is out of beta, officially launched. We've gone over the game many, many, many times. Lots of stuff coming. Huge update. They sneaked in a new profession right at the end, though, didn't they?
Yeah, just kind of right at the last minute. It was like the day before. I was like, oh, by the way, alchemy, here you go. Okay.
Out of nowhere.
We'll take that.
Have you checked it out? Anything interesting there?
Yeah, well, alchemy you kind of expected to be added to the game at some point, mixing potions. It was kind of cool that they gave that profession the ability to do dye packs. So if your class didn't have access to a certain dye because it was class specific, you can now get it through leveling your alchemy or buying it off an alchemist. So one of the big gripes that I have with Neverwinter is the armor customization. It's almost non-existent. Everybody's kind of running around with the same thing at certain levels. So this certainly takes a step in the right direction as far as being able to customize that stuff. Potions, experience pots, great. But then in addition, they also axed a bunch of the cash shop prices. They diced up some of the Zen costs on mounts and things like that. So it was a little pleasant. Here you go. This goes live tomorrow.
How did the actual launch go? Did anything was it pretty smooth? Did anything blow up?
The big thing that was being added, the Gondelgrim PvE, PvP, 20-man, big, awesome endgame thing, broke. Roughly 10 hours in, they took it offline. It's still offline as of right now. Apparently,
What do we
people were
mean by
getting stuck in it.
What do you mean by what do you mean they were getting stuck in it? They were going into it and they just couldn't even get out?
Yeah, you'd get stuck in a certain phase and you couldn't get out. Are you familiar with the Gondel Grim? Because this is actually something you would like. The way you play these things and the sandboxy, and you want your PvE and your PvP smashed together into one experience. If you're not familiar with it, the Gondel Grim is a 3-phase PvE, PvP encounter for 20v20, up to 40 people. What happens is in phase 1, you're assigned to a team when you queue up. You have to be in a guild, by the way, to do this. Kind of a dicey requirement. So yeah, you do have to be in a guild and queue up with some of your guildies. So you're thrown into your team, and phase 1 is a PvE experience. You have to accomplish certain objectives on the map and kill, AI-controlled monsters and everything. And you're accruing points for doing this. Once that phase ends, the story that's tracing through this whole thing ends. You've accomplished those objectives. Whichever team has the higher points out of the 2 teams will get a buff for phase 2. Phase 2 is now these 2 teams that have been doing their own separate PvE experiences now collide and have PvP. Mm-hmm. And these 2 teams of 20 people are duking it out and everything. There are AI big mobs on the map that will also try to jump into the fray. There's big giants that you can get to fight for your team. Once this phase 2 ends, highest score gets to go and do the 3rd phase, which is the Dwarf Kings PvE experience, the final big boss. Mm-hmm. The losing team still gets to go to phase 3, but it's a different phase 3. They don't get to do the Dwarf King thing. They have a chance at tier 1 gear, but if you win the combined phase 1 and 2 situation, you get the chance at tier 2 stuff. Well, really neat take on things.
It's a really cool take on it. It's a really cool concept. I mean, unfortunately, they're having some issues right now, and it's not online, but I really like what it sounds like. It sounds like it could be a really fun encounter. How we talked, I think it was last week, we talked a lot about how many changes were coming in the content patch for launch. And remember, we talked about how things were just changing drastically. And we were a little bit hesitant and scared looking at that list. How is the community taking to the patch with so many changes? People had a lot of serious concerns that they were changing too much at once.
And the biggest of that was, of course, the class changes, right? Mm-hmm. Which came just before the actual 20th live launch. It was a couple days before that they dropped that to get it out of the way. There's the usual things which we talked about when we explained this whole update. The usual bugs and ability tooltips aren't quite right, and they're doing funky things or not working as intended. But generally, unless you're in PvP, which is still incredibly unbalanced, and the timing on the client server just isn't there. I mean, you'll look and see a hit, and it's not a hit, even though it looked clearly like it did on your client side. So PvE is still a little dicey as far as that goes, but overall, not too bad for as many changes as they implemented across the class board.
How much, in your opinion, how much do you think Neverwinter has improved since the start of open beta? Since, in your opinion,
I like Neverwinter, but, and I said this on episode 1 or 2, that it's just kind of my meh game. I don't treat it as an MMO. As far as how it's improved, I don't think it's improved all that much. I think it's just changed. They revamped the classes. Okay, great. There's still work to be done there. Your big PvE, PvP endgame experience doesn't work. Kudos to you for recognizing it and taking it offline immediately, but this probably should have been noticed a little bit earlier, before it was even launched. And they are good at communication. I'll give them that. So they keep us informed about what's going on. I just think generally the game's kind of my go and screw around for an hour type thing. It's nothing I'm going to invest a ton of time in. I like it. It's just not my MMO. It's my hack and slash for a few hours.
And isn't it okay to have those games, though? Like, I feel like especially at a free-to-play game, like, having 1 or 2 of those on your desktop at all times, I think is a really good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with that at all.
So what do you think? Do you think most of the community was looking to just, spend countless hours in this game where they're, doing the long 10, 12-hour runs like they're normally doing on other MMOs, and maybe just isn't what this game is geared for?
I don't know if that's what people were looking for. I mean, people were excited about the concept, and more way back when we got details on it, I had speculated that the only thing that was going to keep the game going was the Foundry, because Perfect World Entertainment doesn't have the best track record when it comes to updates, as far as adding content and things like that. It's certainly nice to keep one of these on your browser. Or on your computer. I don't think people expected a full-blown 30-hour-a-week MMO, and if you did, I could definitely see where you're disappointed. The problem is if you don't entice me to play it for long periods of time, or at least become invested hardcore when I do play it, how are you going to make money long term? And that's where I kind of don't understand the business model right now. If you're not going to entice me to stay with it long term, I'm not going to spend any money, and therefore it's not going to be open very long. I'm interested to see where they go, especially with Module 1, the Feywild module, and how they add to the endgame experience to keep me going and want to spend a couple of bucks because I need something to keep going, or I want to get it faster.
Going to be definitely keeping an eye on this one, and I can't wait till the Gauntlegrim gets back in the game so we can kind of look at that with a little bit more of under a microscope and kind of see how that goes. It sounds really interesting. Next up, last week we talked a bit about how Tryon was sort of kind of screwing over European Rift players. Remind everybody what happened again.
Yeah, so when we talked about it, the North American shards were getting 2 new shards added, and they broke the shards up into 2 different clusters. Good news to handle all the population that was returning to Rift when it went free-to-play, and all the new free-to-play players. Our EU friends at that time had 2 of their shards converted over to trial shards instead. And so they kind of forcibly evicted the entire population. The big issue wasn't the new players killing the population. These were 2 well-established shards that a lot of people returned to Rift. So there really wasn't much they could do as far as expanding the sizes and playing with it. They got pummeled. So they converted them to trial, evicted everybody, and that was it. We speculated that they would probably end up adding shards for the EU. They did, a few days later, add some new shards for them too. So everybody got these great new shards and everything. Population, queues are down, fantastic. But if you got evicted, you're on a new server, you maybe not be with your buddies, and Tryon Worlds at that time really wasn't, making too many comments about, hey, sorry, we had to move you. It was just something we had to do. But now they're giving them at least a token of, hey, we're sorry we had to do this for you.
What are they doing to make it up to those players?
So if you're on any of those shards, 2 of them, you get a title that will have your shard's name in it. So that's exclusive to you. You're getting some special regalia to equip as costume, and then they're giving you 1,000 loyalty, which could influence something in the cash shop as far as what you're trying to buy or what rewards you may get on your loyalty meter wherever you're at. It's not much, right? But they didn't have to do anything. Now, there's a certain argument that, yeah, they needed to do something. I don't think they had to do anything. It's unfortunate. I think it's a nice token.
Yeah,
we're sorry,
and they're unique. Hey, we're sorry, and unique. Yeah, you get to prove you're old school. It's not much. Hey, you get something. Yeah, I mean, they had to make a thing. It's a little bit of a derp on Tryon's part overall, but it happens.
Now, what we didn't know at the time, and it's kind of fortunate that this show got delayed a day or 2. It's not in the notes here, so permit me, Gary, to throw in a little extra for you.
Go for it, my man.
On the Rift live stream on Friday, we got some nice details about some changes that are coming up in Rift.
Like?
Ooh. 3.0. They have teased a lot of that content, including new souls, support cleric, healing warrior, tanking mage, and healing rogue. That one will be a little bit interesting. New companion abilities. You'll be able to skill your abilities for your actual companions, a little customization there for you, and new companion levels. And then they also talked about being able to customize your weapon and armor a lot more than you can now. And then finally alluded to Dimensions playing a bit more of an impact on things than just having a cool player house.
Like
they didn't give us more details.
What do you think that could be?
No more details. I mean, that could be anything.
PvP, taking them down, blowing them up. It's the first thing I think of.
That'd be cool. I think, and my mind goes to PvE first, so we make a good little team here. I'm thinking things like raid buffs, like we've seen some other games advertise, where if you have certain things in your house, you can have your dimension in this case, you can have your team meet there before you go on a raid and gather a certain buff. I'm pretty excited about this to see, because till now it's just been cosmetic, right? Gather pieces and then invite your friends in to take a look at it or make a jumping puzzle or whatever. But now actually influencing the game, I want to see that list. And we would not have known this if the show went live the time it was supposed to. So
there you go. Yeah, we're doing a Sunday show today. Yeah, I don't know. PvP could be one thing. I mean, on the PvE side, I wonder if they would even give you portals even out of your dimensions into raids and things like that. Some sort of like, instead of having to travel anywhere, just or well, I guess you can get to anything from anywhere. So it doesn't really matter.
Now we need weather in dimensions that impacts PvP. Let's just combine everything from this show.
Combine
into
it all
one
together.
thing.
Just make it one thing, and it's dimensions. Just blow them up.
Oh,
I don't know.
This plane will be water based, by the way. When 3.0, you know how they do that planes thing. It'll be water based for you guys that are asking.
Cool stuff coming out from the Tryon people. Want to talk a little bit about Vindictus, but really quick, want to tell you guys about a great deal we got going on with the Squarespace. Guys have a website? Need a website? Yes, you do. Everyone needs a website. If you don't have a website in 2013, you need to get on it regardless of what you need it for. You need a personal website. You need a guild website. Everybody needs a website. Want to hook you up? Go to squarespace.com, make a new account. It is by far the best solution to get you up and running with a website today. They've got amazing award-winning templates to start with. Everything is super easy. If you've never created a website before, I guarantee you will be able to get something up and running in no time that looks awesome. People will not believe how you were able to possibly do this. If you guys have experience and you have some HTML experience and you want to customize your web experience, you're going to be able to do that as well. There's a ton. Their new engine is just phenomenal, especially getting in the back end and customizing and doing all kinds of stuff. If you have a store and you want to sell stuff, shopping cart stuff is usually not the easiest thing to actually implement into a website. It's all built in to Squarespace. It is super easy to get it going. I want to save you guys 10% off right now. Just go over to squarespace.com and make a new account. And then use the offer code GAMEBREAKER with the number 6. That's GAMEBREAKER6. Save yourself 10% off. Go check it out. You will not regret it. Believe me, Squarespace is awesome. All right, so let's talk about Vindictus. Game we haven't talked about ever on this show in all 4 episodes that we have done ever.
in the many years that we've been doing the Derpy, we have never talked about Vindictus
ever. So Vindictus is more vindictive ever. It's got 2.2 update coming. So they've got a teaser of the new Berserker class, which is coming. That isn't there yet. 2.2 is bringing some new dungeons, some improvements to many of the game systems, as well as a bunch of new skills. Have you checked out Vindictus in the past? Have you played it?
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but it's not one of my favorite games. But as far as like arcadey type actiony combat goes, it's definitely a hell of a lot of fun. Kind of like, we were just talking about Neverwinter. It's that unplug your brain and just beat the hell out of some things for a couple of hours. Vindictus is definitely high on the list of ways to do that without having to spend a dime. The Berserker, I will tell you, I know enough about the game that the Berserker was needed as far as a different play style, because it's been kind of stagnant for a while. There haven't been too many updates. So kudos on them for adding that. And then 2.2, if you haven't played Vindictus in a while, a lot got overhauled in these last couple of updates. You need to go take a look at it.
And I think what you brought up about Neverwinter, just that style of game of what I was saying before about having a couple games on your desktop that are free to play games that you could just kind of go to. Vindictus is another one. I completely agree. It's like one of those games you just have in there, go in. A lot of people, even in one of our Game Breaker peeps, Justin, he swears, saying that like the combat in Invictus is some of the most fun he's ever had in the boss fights and stuff. And he said, I've never really had something that good of an experience. He loves that stuff.
Yeah, that's Justin's favorite saying whenever we're playing a new game. This is a great game. You know, it's good. It's good. It could be better. They could have Vindictus style combat.
They could. The combat's
like
really good
for Justin.
The combat's really good in that game. So if you haven't checked it out, 2.2 is definitely time to check it out. And check out the Berserker and give it another run. Mr. Mike Byrne, follow him on the Twitter at MagicMan1, the double N and a 1. And of course,
double G and double M on double D.
There you go. Make sure to go over to FreeToPlay.tv. That's where he posts all his reviews and all the good stuff. So FreeToPlay.tv. You can follow me on Twitter at Gary Gannon. Follow Gameburger TV, and follow FreeToPlay at. Damn, I wish I had it in front of me. It's F2. Damn.
F2P TV at F2P TV.
I failed.
Quick note for chat room. Watch Ion this week. If you're in the United States, 4.0 is this week. If you're in Europe, it's next month. Keep an eye on it.
Ooh, all right. Keep an eye on that. Go over to freetoplay.tv. Have a great weekend. We usually do the show on Fridays at 4 PST. And you'll be back next week in good hands. I am away. You'll be with Mike Schaffnitz for the Derpy Dragon. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week for Derpy Dragon.